Hey YouTube, this is gonna be a video about MMA versus pro wrestling, about the UFC, about Dana White, about Vince McMahon, about the WWE, about TNA, all those big name companies. Anyway, you know something weird? I always get nervous when I start making one of these vids, even if I'm just talking into a microphone. I guess I'm always afraid I'm gonna fuck something up or something like that. I mean, I'm sitting here playing with my car keys just to preoccupy myself with something just so I'm not so nervous. But it's probably because I have ADD. But anyway, not meaning to get off the subject. Okay. We'll start off with the WWE. The WWE used to be, now notice I say used to be, a good thing. I mean, it used to be all about sex, violence, people beating the shit out of people, and all that good jazz. And that was back in the 90s. It was more blood back then, more woman on woman, more women making out with each other, woman on woman. I don't want to say sex, but because I can't legally show that, but yeah, just two women making out, you know, more bra and panties matches, more hardcore matches where two guys would beat the shit out of each other. Well, even though it's staged, like they would make it more bloody, you know, more violent. But nowadays, once they started losing their fan base after 2007, just like that, like a switch, they switched to PG shit. Like, I remember John Cena when he used to come out there rapping like a thug, like kind of like a real thug, you know? And that was pretty cool. But now he's out there like, oh, I'm a Marine, I'm a superhero to a 10-year-old boy, or 10-year-old boys, you know? And now it's just gone from good to complete shit. You hardly see the divas on there anymore. Even if you do, they aren't wearing any bikinis or anything. They're just like wearing just these little frilly, just flashy clothes and shit. And they lost all the good superstars to TNA, but you can't blame the superstars for wanting to leave the WWE. I mean, TNA, it's starting to become, it's kind of what WWE was in the 90s. And more blood, as far as blood and stuff. Now, they don't have the divas and shit on there, but it has more blood and more violence and more darkness, basically. What you look for in pro wrestling. Now, they've gotten bored and gotten these people in there like Sheamus and John Morrison, who used to be Johnny Nitro and all that. And then they turned John Cena into a superhero to 10-year-old kids. And people like The Undertaker, they make them like he's the one that'll fall, like, or lose to these new guys that are coming in, so they can show how powerful and how much potential these new guys are gonna have, and all these. And see, Undertaker's probably the Undertaker. I know for a fact Undertaker is the last legend they have in there. Other than Triple H, he is the last legend, and he's probably not going to be in there much longer. And if WWE doesn't open their eyes and figure that out, they're fucked. And now, with that being said, I'm going to go on to TNA. Okay, TNA. It is it's a rising company. It's starting to rise through the ranks. And I like how it's more like WWE was in the early 90s. More darkness, more blood, more violence, more falling through the ring, more breaking the ring, more hitting each other head with steel chairs and shit like that. And that's what I like about it. But the only thing that this is... Now, I respect TNA, yet I hate TNA if that makes any sense. But this is why I hate TNA. They bash every other company out there. Not even in pro wrestling alone. They bashed WWE. They bashed the UFC. I'm sure they bashed boxing a few times when they did that thing where they had Sylvester Stallone fight Mick Foley as Rocky, like a cardboard cutout of Sylvester Stallone fighting Mick Foley in the ring. You know, look that up on YouTube. It should be like Rocky Balboa versus Mick Foley, TNA, something like that. And they bash all these other organizations out there. Now, if they keep talking, they're just going to lose more money because every time you say WWE or UFC, WWE and UFC is making more money from that. And because of that, like they're probably the most arrogant brand that I can think of. They're nothing but arrogance. Now they do have talent in there, but they're arrogant. See, if they didn't bash on other companies and say, "Oh, I got your superstars now. They belong to us, and your company sucked, and I'm never gonna go back there. TNA rules and stuff." If they didn't do all that shit, it would be a great show. It would be like WWE in the early '90s. I would tune into that every Thursday or whenever it comes on to watch it. But since they do that, I just can't watch that shit, man. And it's just bullshit that they have to bash on other companies to make themselves try to sound tough, because they already are a tough company. And I don't think they need to bash on WWE and UFC to prove that. Anyway, now on to UFC and MMA. Okay, UFC. UFC is my favorite thing to watch. I like it more than pro wrestling, more than WWE, and more than boxing, of course. And the thing is, though, the only problem I have with UFC is it doesn't have a lot of respect with some of the pro wrestlers that come in there, like Brock Lesnar, who do have a lot of potential, but they'll still bash them just because they're pro wrestlers. Now, I will admit that most pro wrestlers that have gone into there have gotten their asses whipped, then that was all that was said. Like that instance with Bam Bam Bigelow, he got his ass handed to him. I forget who beat him up, but yeah, and hold on, lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, and they just don't like the thought of professional wrestlers being in there. Because of that, some people are leaving the UFC, or some fans are leaving or abandoning the UFC because they're saying it's staged and faked. Dude, if you think that is staged and faked, watch Gonzaga versus Crow Cop. Dude, do you think it was humanly possible after Gonzaga landed that massive head kick to Crow Cop's skull that Crow Cop was able to flexibly bend his leg that way and let his eyes roll back into his head and shit? No. And also, and here's another one you should look at if you think it's fake. Evans versus Machida. I mean, when Machida knocked him out, one eye was rolling back. One of Evans' eyes was rolling backwards while one was still forwards and stuff, and his lips were like doing this weird thing. Like they were like puckering up or something. It's hard to explain. And yeah, I mean, UFC definitely isn't fake. I mean, WWE is the stuff that's staged, and TNA and shit like that. Pro wrestling is staged. Now, as far as entertainment-wise, WWE used to be better than all of them. But it actually depends on what you want. Right now, I think UFC is better entertainment-wise, just because of the pure violence and the realness of it. What people are looking for, and they're actually looking for something that's real and not staged, like pro wrestling. And yeah, WWE is the fastest growing, not WWE, MMA is the fastest growing sport there is out there. WWE's losing all their fans, which I don't blame them, because it switched to that PG shit where where they have good guys and bad guys. It's like, oh, I'm the hold on, shit. Sorry. Screensaver. Anyway, and like they have Edge on there going, oh, I'm the bad guy. I'm the rated R superstar. Edge. And then John Cena's like, not so fast, Edge. I'm John Cena. I'm going to put the attitude adjustment on you, which they called it, which used to be called the FU, because of their PG shit. They changed it to the attitude adjustment. And I'm going to beat you and retain my title because the champ is here. And all that shit. And the WWE, it's just old. I mean, nothing lasts forever, in my opinion, if you ask me. I don't think UFC is gonna last forever. Nothing does. TNA isn't gonna last forever. Boxing is already starting to go down the drain. Whether you boxing nut huggers will agree with me or not, it is. Like, you got James Toney fighting Randy Couture because probably he has no one else to fight. James Toney is talented, and they have no other good talent to bring in to fight him. And he's talking the talk about, hold on, let me try to do James Toney impersonation. Boxing is better than MMA. I'm gonna make the flick of Randy Couture at UFC 118, man. Yeah. Oh, you give me an attitude, Mr. Reporter? Yeah, man. You must be a UFC nut, or boxing is all the way, man. Yeah, and we have James Toney talking all that shit about UFC when everybody knows he's probably going to get the shit beat out of him, although I could be wrong, but he probably is, because he says that once Randy Couture goes in for the shot, he's just going to uppercut him and knock him out. It's not going to be that easy. Randy Couture is going to be playing with him with his hands for a little bit, and like teasing him teasing him with his hands, and like landing a few punches to his stomach and to his face and whatnot, like a few taps. Then he's going to go into the shot when he least expects it. And yeah, and so that's, sorry if I rambled on or left anything out. That's kind of my take on everything. And if any of you nut huggers from any of the brands out there want to argue with me saying UFC sucks, that pro wrestling or boxing is better, yeah, you can kiss my ass for all I care. I don't give a shit. Bring it. Anyway, that's my video. Bye.